Hey everybody, Regina Andler here, and welcome to Coffee with Regina. Today I have my friend Deberah Bringelson with me, and I want to read you a little bit about Deberah and her background. She has an absolutely amazing background, and she is an international speaker, empowerment expert, and an international profit-producing authority. She helps entrepreneurs break through the fog of confusion, poor sales, and overwork to increase revenues and reclaim the time, energy, and joy that your business has stolen from your life. And she works also with teams fixing problems like HR nightmares and inconsistent revenues and poor leadership. We all know that one, right? She's worked with Fortune 100 companies, Fortune 500 companies, CEOs, US presidents, business titans like Sir Richard Branson, Tony Robbins, and more. She has a holistic approach to transforming her clients' businesses to create a true lifestyle business. Her clients are empowered to live their own lives of personal and financial freedom while at the same time experiencing explosive results that skyrocket both personal and financial growth. Using her proven formula, they experience exponential success combined with a clear understanding that life and business are meant to be easy, abundant, joyful, and fun. Welcome, Deberah.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here with you, having my coffee with you.
that is, you know, that is a longer bio than I normally read for most people. And the thing is that I was just floored by what you bring to the table for everything.
Oh, thank
And,
you.
having chatted with you and having conversations with you and then checking out your website and all the things that you've done, it's absolutely amazing to me the the breadth, the width of everything that you encompass in what you do. Tell us in your words, you know, I don't know, if I asked you to sum up what you do in like 10 words or less, what would you tell me?
Oh my goodness. More money, less stress, more fun.
I love it. How's that for short and sweet, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, and when we think about that, right? I mean, especially in today's world with the way everything goes, isn't like stress like the huge thing right now?
Well, stress is huge. I mean, it really is huge, but I mean it in a way probably that's a little bit different from how other people take it in. I mean, when we talk about stress, we talk about the stress on our body and the effect that it has in our day-to-day lives. But what I'm really talking about in addition to that is that stress actually influences the frequency of your vibration that you emit out into the world. And that affects 100% of everything in your life. It affects the amount of money that you make. It affects the business deals that you close or the sales that you make, your relationships, your health. So stress is huge right now. And I don't see it easing up anytime soon. So one of the things that's so important to me is to help people understand how to get their frequency in alignment with what they want to create in their lives, whether it's healing their body. I mean, I have a client who I've worked with for a year who has healed her body from leukemia with no chemo. And a big part of what she attributes her success to is the reduction in stress using my guided processes. So yeah, it's huge.
I absolutely love that. And I think that's why you and I resonate so much, speaking of frequencies and such, is because, that whole quantum physics, the whole idea that everything is energy and everything vibrates at a certain frequency. And when those frequencies are off, that's what causes stress. The stress frequency is just like, crazy, chaotic frequency. And you have it in your own power to reset your energies and reset those vibrations and frequencies to actually make your life more joyful.
Right. Yeah. And, one of the things that so many people are talking about, which really frustrates me, is everybody talks about, well, your thoughts create your reality. And that's true, sort of, but only sort of. And so many people say, well, I walk around all day trying to think good thoughts. And why am I not getting what I want? Well, the reason is because you don't understand what your real point of power is. There are 4 components to your point of power, and most people have them all pointed in a different direction.
Hmm. So when you say there's 4 points of power, I'm not even sure if I know what the 4 points of power are. So there's 4 points of power, and if you have them going out in different directions, I mean, that just sounds in my brain that that creates chaos. So when you think about what, well, let me ask you, what are the 4 points of power?
So there are 4 points of power, and they're in 2 pairs. The first point includes your thoughts, and that's kind of a weaker energy. It does have energy, but it's a weaker energy. The component that goes with your thoughts are your emotions. And the best way to think about your emotions, they're in your head. They're not in your body. We'll get to your body in a minute. They're in your head. So when you're driving down the street and somebody cuts you off and you slam on the brakes, and maybe you've got a child and you put your hand over to save your child, and you've got these thoughts that start running through your head, and they're not always nice thoughts. And there's emotion in your mind that goes with those thoughts. Think about if you've ever had an experience like that. You start, I call it looping, 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 looping. Okay, so that goes off, and those are going in a direction that you don't want to go. They're not in a high frequency direction. The second pair is the more powerful pair, and that is your feelings in your body. When you get a bill in the mail that you're not expecting, and it's a high bill, for example, and you feel that feeling in your gut, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? That feeling that runs through your body is the fuel on the fire of what you're creating. It's the most powerful one, and it is directed by your core beliefs. And here's the really key part of this. Everyone has buried beliefs or core beliefs that run their life that they're not even aware that they have. I'll give you an example. I've been working with a client who he owns his own business, and he does fine. He does okay. The money comes in okay, but it's not where he wants it to be. And he always has this ceiling of fine. And so we did some exploration about what are the core beliefs that are driving this. And when he was about 14 years old, his father lost his job. He started a business, and the financial chaos in the family was so significant that his mother attempted suicide. And as a 14-year-old boy, he was in survival mode, and he wanted things to just be fine. He just wanted everything to just be fine. And so he set a ceiling on his financial life of fine, not
Wow.
ever significant success, just fine. And now that he's discovered that through some processes that we used, he's realizing, oh my God, this has controlled my life, my whole life. And he's in his 60s. So that was not something that he was sitting around thinking as a 60-year-old. I just want to be fine financially. But it was driving his life. And so every time he was making a business decision, he was using that belief and the feelings in his body unintentionally to control what was happening in his life.
So I just typed into the chat, it's you get to set your own bar. And if you intentionally set your bar at fine, and then you're complaining about, well, how come it's never any better than this? It's
Right.
like, well, you're the one who set the bar at fine.
Right.
So I always tell people, the best part of the awareness of where you are is that you have the power to change it. So
Yeah.
it's up to you. You get to turn around and say, well, I don't like fine anymore. Fine was fine then. Now I want something more than fine.
Right. Right.
So if you're at a fine level and you're like, I want something better. What do you do? Where do you go? What
Well,
changes?
the first thing you need to do is you need to uncover it. And it's not a situation where spend the next 20 years discussing it and mulling it over, but uncover it. What is it that is driving your life? And then there are some tools that you can use to switch that frequency. So, and you want to, as I said, your point of power, it's like an arrow that's four things coming to a point, that when you get them all lined up, when you get that arrow lined up and you shoot it toward your target, then it's not one going here, one all over the place. It's going in one direction. And when you clear out those frequencies of, after you've discovered what your core beliefs are, you clear out those frequencies, then you can really make a shift. One of my clients that I talk about a lot, she went 18 months with zero income, literally zero income. And we did a session with her. What are these beliefs? I said to her, I said, you should be making money. We've done all of the business things and we've done them right. You should be making money and you're not. So you're blocking it. And I said, I'd like to try something. I'd like to do some energetic work with you. Are you up for it? This was a few years ago, before I was quite so public about my secret sauce. And she said, sure. So we met on a Friday and we discovered that one of her big core beliefs was that she didn't deserve wealth. She came from a wealthy family and she believed that she'd never done anything to deserve it. So she was in her body saying, I don't deserve wealth, and she was blocking it. So in that same session, we cleared that out. And within 8 days, she made $298 million.
What?
Yeah.
$298 million.
Yeah. And if you don't believe me, she talks about it in a video on my website. So it's not just Deborah saying it. She says it in her own words.
That is absolutely amazing. And, when you think about that, you think about how much we don't know, how much, you and I, and I'm sure you know a lot more than I do when it comes to some of the energetic stuff, because you're working with it more every day than I do. For me, it's kind of, being a science geek. I'm all about the quantum physics, how the energy, frequency, vibration works. So I dabble in it. For the average person who doesn't really understand that really everything is all about the energy, and that energy can be blocking you from what it is that you want in life.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not even aware that you're self-blocking. You don't even know that it's going on until somebody like you, until you work with somebody like you that can point it out, that can see it from the outside and say, hey, there's something deeper going on here that we might want to uncover and work with. And so I love that, because I do work with people with limiting beliefs on a regular basis. And one of the limiting beliefs that I deal with all the time is that limiting belief around money. Money doesn't grow on trees. I grew up with I had a massive limiting belief with money in the past that I had to clear away before I could do anything. And, it was money doesn't grow on trees. Who do you think we are? The Rockefellers? I got everything growing up. If I wanted a quarter to go down and buy penny candy back, that was back in the day when it was actually a penny. If I wanted a quarter, literally my dad was like, well, what are you going to do for it? You're going to sweep the driveway, rake the front lawn. You're going to do chores. I was like, you had to earn. And it was always the constant push that it's hard to make money. It's a struggle. And if you really want to make a lot of money, you're never going to have a good life, because you're going to be constantly grinding and grinding and grinding to make that money. And it took me the longest time to actually go, that's not true.
It's not true. Money is merely energy. And it's like electricity. You don't need to know how to make electricity, because everybody says, oh, well, Deborah, this is metaphysics and quantum. So metaphysics for me comes from the shamanic influences that I've had in my life. I'm part Native American and initially worked with a lot of shaman, and then later also picked up and started working with quantum physics. And everybody says, oh my gosh, that's so much. I can't learn all of that. And what I say to people is, you don't need to understand how to make electricity in order to flip the switch. And the same is true with creating your own life, understanding the metaphysics and the quantum physics parts of it. You just need to know how to flip the switch. But here's to your point, that switch controls 100% of everything that's happening in your life. So if you don't know how to use it, you're swirling in all of this confusion and getting results that you don't want.
So you're teaching people how to flip their switch.
That's exactly what I do. Teach you how to flip the switch. You don't need to look. People say to me, "Oh my God, quantum physics, that's so much math." And I say, I am the worst person at math. I think my daughter surpassed me in math when she was in about fourth grade, right? So I am not a math genius, but you don't have to be.
Yeah, and I get that too, because I'm all on the side of the, I don't want to get down and dirty into the scientific part of the metaphysics, the quantum physics and all that stuff, and deal with all of the equations. I actually have some of them written down on papers from courses that I took, and I'm like, yeah, that's not the part that I'm interested in. I'm interested in this picture of what is what is life and what is running that life, and everything is energy. And when you just understand, even at that high level, what energy is, and accept the fact that everything is energy,
Mhm.
then all of a sudden you have a new perspective on things, and you look at things differently. You look at the switch and you're like, oh, well, what happens if I flip it?
Right,
Oh, look at that, everything's working now.
right,
And it's a whole new mindset.
right, right. And that energy is controlled by the beliefs that we have about ourselves. One of the beliefs that is pervasive is some form of I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy. And we are so used to those messages, and they can come from a glaring look from a parent, or they don't even have to be, somebody saying, "Well, nobody's ever said to me directly, you're not worthy." I had a client who was really struggling with business. He had some initial success. He was the CEO of a company. He had some initial success, and beginner's luck, and that is a thing in business. And then he was struggling, and I said to him, I said, I think the real problem is your relationship with your father. And he said, "What? Are you crazy? I have a great relationship with my father." And I said, "Oh, really? Do you remember when you've told me that he comes in here? He doesn't work here, but he comes in here 3 or 4 times a week and he walks around looking disapproving. And he says things to you like, when are you going to smarten up and sell this place and get a real job?" That is destroying your belief in your ability to have a great job or a great business. But the thing is, he thought he had a great relationship with his father, and he didn't. But, good sons have great relationships with their parents. And his belief was that he wanted to be, and he was a good son, a good person. So he had to have that great relationship when it really wasn't true. And it was destroying his business.
Yeah, and when you were saying that, I was like, I had all these flashes of that happening, with him walking in saying, when are you going? Are you done with this yet? Are you going to sell it? And back in the day, you know, conversely, so back in the day when I started my first business was a computer repair business that I started back in somewhere around 2000, and my parents, conversely, my dad, who was a career GE man, so it was, I learned from him, and he switched it. So I had learned from him, though, originally, you go to college, you get a corporate job, you work there for 40 years, you retire with your pension. That's the way life works.
And
And
you know
that's the way
what?
and that's the way I thought it was supposed to work. And quickly learned that, nowadays things change. My dad adopted that. When I started my first business, I got a lot of support because they came in, saw my business. I had a brick and mortar place. So he'd walk in and he was like, "This is amazing. I can't believe you set all this stuff up." So that actually helped me. The opposite way was like, it fueled me to say, yeah, I got this. I can do this. I am worthy. I deserve this. I'm doing good here.
Mhm.
And just thinking about what this man's father said to him coming in, I think I would have been crushed. I don't think I'd be where I am today
Oh yeah.
if that was what my dad had told me when he walked into my business. I think that would have crushed me. I don't know where I would be now.
But think about how those messages seep in so subtly. I mean, one of the messages that I had growing up was that girls never beat boys. I was an athlete and I was a pretty decent athlete. So like if I was going to go play sports and there were boys involved, never be good enough to beat them. Always play under your skill level. When you're learning that in middle school, high school, you're absorbing that affects your entire life. Or if you're in a romantic relationship where you're told that, the man has to be the captain of the ship and there can only be one captain. And so the woman has to be subservient to that in some way. Even if you reject that intellectually, there's a piece of it still driving your core.
Yeah, when I talk to people about those limiting beliefs that are in there, I call them pine trees and willow trees, because the limiting beliefs that are pine tree limiting beliefs, those are like pine trees have very shallow roots, so they're easily pulled out and blown over. So you can get rid of those ones easy. Then there's the willow ones, which are the deep ones. Willow tree roots they're deep, they're invasive, they wrap around other stuff, and they're really hard to yank out and get completely gone. And it's that kind of stuff that subtly comes in that you don't even realize you're being, I guess, brainwashed, right? I mean,
Right.
it's literally you're being brainwashed to believe something that really isn't true, and you didn't even realize that it's going on. And then that just goes so deep that
Right.
you really need people like you and to help pull that stuff out, to recognize it and be able to reverse the effects of it and replace it with something more empowering.
Yes, absolutely. And I have found one of the best ways to pull those out. First, as I said, uncover them. What are they? And working at the quantum level. So you and I can sit here and we can say, okay, well, the father who said all those things to his son, reject those. But when they're buried, especially if those kinds of messages were given to you before the age of 7 or 8, you didn't have the capacity to reject them. You're a sponge. Literally, you're a sponge. You soak everything up and it's yours. So you have to do it in a different way. And so the way I do it, I have these guided processes that take people into the quantum field consciously, where we use that quantum energy to pull those out at the root rather than just snipping them off by saying, okay, well, that's stupid. Don't believe it, because that's easy for people to say. You can recognize it. Okay, that's really dumb to say to somebody, you're not smart enough to do something, right? You can reject that with your mind, but it's harder to reject it with your body. So you have to pull it out like it's a weed.
Yeah, it's getting down into those deep roots, because even using the willow tree analogy, the willow tree, you pull something out and you don't get all those roots that are down there, eventually something's going to trigger you and you're going to be right back where you were before.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, thinking about how deep those roots can go, like you said, I mean, I've always been told it's between like the ages of 3 and 8 that the really deep limiting beliefs, or we'll just call them beliefs. The beliefs are placed in there, whether they're limiting or not. Depends on what they are. So all of our beliefs, limiting or otherwise, are really instilled as children, like you said, as a young child. We don't have that capacity yet. We haven't learned that we can actually control what's coming in and how we choose to respond to it.
Yeah, and it is actually before 3. It can actually happen in the womb. I have
Mm.
people that I've worked with where something has happened while they were in the womb, and it'll keep coming up, and they'll say to their parent, so what happened in the 3rd trimester? What happened, when I was pregnant? One woman did not know until she was in her late 20s that when her mother was pregnant with her, they were homeless. And when she was born, they were homeless. And there were tremendous money issues in her life because of that trauma that her mother was going through. Energy is not, there's no barrier by age. Energy flows. So one of the things that I do when I work with clients is I read their energy. I can tell, like, you've got a block in your heart or in your solar plexus, or wherever it is. I can, because I can feel it in my own body. And so our energy does not stop at our skin. So she picked up her mother's energy and fear about money while she was still in the womb.
Yeah, and I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And there's a lot of studies around the whole generational limiting beliefs, where it's like you could have a limiting belief that was something from your great great grandparents that
Correct.
just kind of flowed through, and that energy just kept going. And it's really super important, especially as a business owner, to be able to identify. And I always tell people, this isn't about, just wiping stuff out. It's a process. It's I have to identify it, and then you have to actually acknowledge it. It's not just, hey, yeah, that was stupid, let's just forget about it. It's not. Acknowledgement is a piece of it. That's not the end of it.
No, and I would say the one of the biggest issues when I'm working with clients and students is their resistance to acknowledging it. They're resist even, one client, I said, "You're under so much stress." And he's like, "What? It's just part of life." Like, no, you're under a tremendous amount of stress. We need to reduce your stress. So there's tremendous resistance in all areas to even acknowledging that something is keeping you down, because we've got that attitude, we're just going to push through. And you know what? Pushing through not only doesn't help, it actually makes it worse.
Yeah, well, I mean, energy is energy, right? And so if you push on energy, it pushes back. And
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, so
You are fighting.
right, it's like the more you try to push, I mean, that's the whole idea of, what you put out there, you get back. There's a whole idea behind karma. Even, karma, people always talk about karma being, the bad stuff. It's like, oh yeah, karma's going to get you. Well, karma's good stuff too. Karma is, there's good karma, and then there's bad karma. All karma is energy. It's yes, it's going to come back, or something's going to happen. I just have to say this out loud just because it's in my head all the time, and it just drives me crazy when I hear people say stuff like, "Oh, I'll see you in the trenches," or and I'm like, "Will you stop saying that, please?"
Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny because one of my favorite quantum physicists, I'm in a group where we discuss his book, and we always talk about, don't live for the weekend, don't live for the vacation, live your life as a constant celebration, that it's always the weekend, it's always the vacation. And people think, well, that's not possible because I have to go to work. Actually, it is possible.
It's all in your head. It's your mindset. You can enjoy your day even if you have to go to work. Be present. Be present and enjoy life. I think this is why I enjoy chatting with you so much, is because it's like we're on that same wavelength, and there's just so much that I pick up from you every time I talk to you, that it's like it's like, yeah, it just gives me new ideas, and it boosts my energy just chatting with you.
Thank you.
So
Well,
yeah,
and that's how it works, actually. You pick up energy from the people that you interact with or the people that you identify with. If you identify with victims of a particular crime or something, energetically, you're connected to them through your identification. You're connected to them throughout the world, and you're
yeah.
picking up that energy. So, one of the things that we want to do is we want to intentionally disconnect from those groups. Yes, you experience pain. I grew up in a very abusive home, and I was a part of those energetic groups for a long time. And it doesn't mean that I didn't have those experiences and they were wrong, but I don't want to suffer with them and suffer the results of them for the rest of my life. It's time for them to be over. And that's what I would say to everyone.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a good point to we're just about done our time here. Oh my gosh, it's like, oh, right. We could just keep talking about this forever. That's a great point though to end on, because it's like you acknowledge it and understand that yes, that was part of something that happened. That doesn't mean I have to live it and hold on to it and embrace it constantly. I can let it be, yeah, that was just something that happened, and move on, and be in a much better energetic frequency and vibration area than I was, when I was back then. So I mean, I think that acknowledgement piece is like the key to everything. Like you said, people don't acknowledge it all the time.
Uh-huh. Or they actively resist it. That's the big one.
Yeah. And I mean, I talk to people often about their comfort zones, and people are like, yeah, a comfort zone because that's where I'm comfortable. And it's like a comfort zone. If you're comfortable in your comfort zone, that doesn't necessarily mean that your comfort zone is actually made up of good stuff. It just means it's made up of stuff that you know.
Right.
So if you're in an abusive relationship and you stay there because it's your comfort zone, you know what to expect, even though it's not what you want. You know what to expect, and going outside of that, you don't know what to expect. So you're like, well, no, I'll just stay in my comfort zone. Even though I don't like it here, I'll stay here. And it's kind of the same thing with the limiting beliefs. It's like, I kind of stay with this belief because, well, it's the belief that I know and I grew up with it and I'm comfortable here, even though, yeah, in my conscious mind, I really don't think it's true. I just feel like, I've always had it. So why let it go? So I get that whole acknowledgement piece.
Yeah. Yeah. And people there, you bring up a really good point. There's a disconnect for people between the thoughts in their head and the beliefs that they have in their body. And one of the things that people don't understand, because everybody says, oh, your thoughts create your reality. Well, between thoughts and beliefs win 100% of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And we're just so, for the most part, we're so not conscious of those beliefs and how much they control our lives until you actually bring it to your conscious and go, what is stopping me from this? There's got to be something behind, why I'm not making enough money, why I'm not having as much success as I'd like. What is behind it? It's not necessarily what you're doing and the actions that you're taking for your business. Sometimes it has something that has nothing to do with that, like that woman with the $298 million. My gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. And so many people say to me, I don't have time for a lot of this stuff that you're talking about, Deborah, because I've got to, go to work or run my business or whatever. And what they don't understand is you don't have time to not do this. And the reason is if you've got your frequency and vibration in alignment with what you want, things just magically happen. I wish we had more time. I would tell you the story about how I had a $0 budget, put together a massive party for Richard Branson when he was starting his Virgin America in 8 days. I had no staff, no money, no nothing, and it happened magically in 8 days.
Wow.
Because I focused on the energy of it, not on the, oh my gosh, I've got to run out and see if I can raise $50,000 for this party.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. So tell me, did I type this in right? Quantumresultsformula.com?
Yes, if everyone would like a free gift that helps them understand their point of power and how to get it in alignment so that you can create the reality that you want rather than the reality you have, it is quantumresultsformula.com. It's a 16-minute video report. Everyone's got to have 16 minutes.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you so much. That is an amazing gift. And like you said, we could just talk about this like forever. I love this conversation. This has been fabulous. We're out of time though. So I want to thank you so much for being here. This has been a very enlightening conversation.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been my absolute pleasure. And I hope that your listeners get some meaningful help from it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Deborah. And for all of our viewers out there watching it on the replay, put hashtag replay. Come and join us next time for a cup and a chat with purpose. Bye for now.